Greetings everyone and welcome to a chess lesson where you're going to be learning about one of the most popular advantages in chess, the so-called bishop pair or the two bishops advantage. So let's pull something on the board where one side is going to be obtaining such advantage. After h3, let's say that black is taking on f3 and white ends up having the so-called bishop pair. The most important concept for you to remember is the color that you will be attacking versus defending. Usually the color that you will be defending is going to be requiring you to place pawns on that color. So if you look right now and observe the position, black has 3 minor pieces that can attack dark squares, whereas you have only 2. Therefore, you will be defending that color, and a lot of your pawns as white are going to be going to the dark color squares. For black, it's the opposite. They have lost the light square bishop, and so most of their pawns are going to be going to the light squares because they have lost that bishop off. So I just want to do an eyeball test. We're going to be placing pawns for white on the correct color versus incorrect and just see the difference. So at first, I'm going to be placing them on the wrong color, which is the light. And you're going to be seeing how comfortable black's dark square pieces are going to be looking. So for example, in this position, the queen and bishop battery are going to be controlling various dangerous squares. If there is an outpost on a square like f4, opponent's knight is almost sure to land there because of the superiority on the dark squares that black has. Even the squares like b4 are going to be vulnerable, and you cannot castle because of queen h2. Basically, it's terrible pawn placement for white. Now, as we're going back in this position, if we decide to put pawns on the dark color, then the image of the position is going to be looking completely different. So right now in this position, you could see how well we're restricting the black squares strategy of blacks. There are no outposts that they could win easily, and our light square bishop is going to be feeling like a boogeyman or John Wick, if you will, very actively placed on d3, where we can create various threats. Black, by the way, as I've mentioned, is going to be defending the light color, and most like even later g6 can be expected in order to get some light square control for black. So this is very, very important to remember, the color that you're going to be attacking versus defending. And the easiest way to remember when you hold the bishop pair is look at the opponent's bishop, if he has one, and your pawns go usually to the color of that bishop. There are exceptions, like very open endgames where placing pawns on certain color can create weaknesses that you will be losing. There are always exceptions in chess, but most of the time, you want to be putting your pawns on the color of opponent's bishop. And for black, he wants to put the pawns on the color that they have lost bishop off, which would be the light squares in this case. Another thing that you want to do with the bishop pair is, of course, to open up the position. Bishops like open positions. You could also usually easily gain space on the sides of the board. Bishops are supporting the pawn movement very well. And at the right moment, you can trade off one of your bishops to get another type of endgame which is superior for you. So usually in the endgames, because you have access to both light squares and dark squares, you will have opportunities to trade it off for opponent's bishop or knight on a certain square, and at the right moment, that can benefit you to go to another endgame that is winning for you. So let's take a look at an example or examples. This would be a game between Garry Kasparov and Smyslov, where white has 2 bishops. It was an opening stage, it's move 17 right now, and we could just learn to apply some of the principles that we have learned so far. So our opponent has the light square bishop. They're going to be attacking or trying to attack the light squares in this game because they have more pieces that can attack that color. Therefore, we want to be defending that color, and therefore Kasparov plays f3 followed by e4. You could immediately see how the light square bishop of blacks is restricted by the strategy. It makes our dark square bishop, which is the color that we will want to be attacking. Also, the knight is right now of blacks severely restricted. Double pawns on the queen side allows us to stop the black's pawn majority on the queen side, whereas on the right side of the board at some point Garry hopes to push and create a passed pawn, which is one of the main plans in all of the endgames. The rook e8 was played, king f2 getting out of the pin, and over here if black was to try something like bishop e6, I'm pretty sure Kasparov would have tried something like a6, and this situation here is quite devastating. There is a weak pawn on c6 that later white can press by doubling up the rooks. There is bishop b7, and there is a lot of danger here for black. So they played a6 in order to stop that idea. Perhaps now black is ready to develop the light square bishop, have bishop e2, and a simple developing is following. White is applying some pressure on the queen side. One of the things that we can remember is that with bishop pair, the endgame in general is great for us. So white is not against exchanging queens or rooks in such position, but for now white's rooks are better, so they're kept on the board. So white is doubling up. Smyslov with black finds a way to exchange some of the rooks, and you could see right now that the black's majority is somewhat stagnated. These double pawns seemingly bad, but together with the bishops are restricting the pushment of the black's pawn majority, whereas white starts gaining space on the right side with eventual hopes of creating a pass pawn. So knight c5 without any danger. White is maneuvering the bishops and gaining space on the king side. And little by little, white is making progress on the right side of the board. At some point, the rooks are getting swapped. And white is very beautifully supporting the pawns. For example, if there was ever a move like g6, white can always support it with a move like bishop c2. Bishops are excellently supporting the pawn movement on the sides. That's why we usually can gain space better than with bishop or knight, which support such pawn pushment a little bit less. So we have f5 and h5, and as you can see, white is very close to be creating a pass pawn already. We have 2 against 1 in the center. We have to look for various forks, but black, of course, doesn't have one because their opponent is Garry Kasparov. You could see that the bishop is very well looking at all the squares that the knight can go to, and at some point, white gets a pass pawn. Black is already in a lot of danger. White's king is also better, and here it goes. At the right moment, you could make the trade. And white is just getting a winning opposite curve bishop endgame here. The bishop is simply going to move away. Perhaps we could get even the king to e5. And then with these 2 pass pawns, white is winning the game and black resigns. So this game emphasizes that beautiful point. We could also take a look at one more example played by Botvinnik over here. White in this position has 2 bishops. And I like especially the first move of white's a lot. He played knight h4. So the big idea is to provoke g6, or otherwise we get the knight to f5. And here black is weakening the dark squares. And if you look at your bishop pair right now, we want to place our pawns on light and be attacking the dark color because opponent doesn't have the dark square bishop. So it's good for our bishop. It will be easier to attack the black's position after black has played this move g6, which is weakening. So the knight will just be rerouting perhaps to e3 to go to d5. Knight goes there. And here it goes. White places the pawns on the light color. They go to c4. Queen is hit, so queen e2. This also opens up this diagonal for the bishop. And then white strikes with f4 to open up the position. And then it comes, of course, to tactics. One has to be a good calculator if he wants to apply strategy well in certain positions, especially if it's chaotic and there are lots of candidate moves in the position. So the position is very rich. But white eventually managed to open it up, and believe it or not, black is simply lost in this position. There are too much activity with white pieces that they're generating, and tactical combinations will soon follow. As you can see, the knight comes to d5 and rook f1, and soon black lost because of white's piece placement superiority. So I think my lesson today is more getting you to a winning position than rather teaching you how to win from a position which is already winning, and how to utilize the 2 bishops, how to follow the principles, which we should conclude right now. You place the pawns, if you have the 2 bishops, on the color of your opponent's bishop and attack the opposite color. You try to gain space on the sides of the board. Opening up the position in general is great for you, and endgame is also very often good for you, and you could exchange the queens and rooks and not lose the bishop pair advantage. So I hope that it gives you a lot of clarity on how to use that advantage. If you were to hire me as your personal teacher, I would be giving you way more examples than today, but I have to make videos somewhat short. So I hope that you enjoyed the lesson. If you did, subscribe to my chess channel or even consider hiring me as your personal chess coach. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.